3D Printing Today, show number 424. Monocure Clear. Should we build a Voron? Key hanger projects.
Welcome back to 3D Printing Today, the podcast about all aspects of 3D printing. Hobby, professional, industrial, it doesn't matter, we cover it all. My name's Andy Cohen, and I'm here at Mr. Whitney Potter.
How you doing, Andy?
Doing pretty good, and so is 3D Systems. Did you see the article in 3D Printing Industry? They got they made some announcements about where they're going, what their plans are for growth, and that made their share value go up.
Uh-huh.
And not a little bit, too. Not like 2%, more like 12%. And that's pretty significant, actually. And, you know, that company's gone through some amazing changes over the past, 10 years since we've been involved with low-cost 3D printing stuff. And it's amazing that they're still around, and it's amazing that they're now growing again. It's really good news. And that's not the only good 3D printing news out there. There's another article in 3D Printing Industry again that talks about HP's revenue. And this is the part of HP that sells the 3D printers. There's lots of different HPs out there these days. Mm-hmm. This HP makes that jet printer that competes directly with the Stratasys jet machine.
Polyjet. Uh-huh.
And they're saying that their revenue is increasing in Q1. They got an increase of 9% and very significant year-over-year growth in the overall business. Mm-hmm. Both of these stories are very positive. They're not the only positive stories, but there are also negative stories, which means it's not really a situation where the tide's rising and all boats float up.
Right.
This is being differentiated from those companies that add real value and have a quality product versus those that are either just treading water or not really increasing their value in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to see that prior to when this announcement was made by HP, for instance, their stock had been dropping, just like the whole rest of the market had been. And so they got a little blip with this favorable earnings. But over the last month, they're only down 5%. That's having gained back, 9% or something in a day on their good news. And the 3D Systems stock is very interesting because if you look at this is their weekly chart, and this was
there's a blip up.
There's a blip up, and then it dropped right back down to what they were at before. So,
well, at least they're trying. Well, I bet that blip becomes reality if their plans succeed and things do increase. That's the big if.
Right.
And then the blip represents that people out there like what they heard.
Yeah, sure.
So I guess we'll see.
But not enough to start a rally or break the downward trend of the last month, and they're still down almost 9% for the last month. So it's been a hard month for stocks, but a lot of other things affecting that.
Yeah, so. I think so. What do we have on our show this week, Whitney?
So let's see.
We're going to start by doing a review of Monocure Clear resin.
And then we are going to ask, should we build a Voron?
And then we discuss some key hanger projects. Let's do it. So the other day, my daughter was in town. She lives elsewhere. And she had a request for me to 3D print an object which we purchased the object online, an object of some IP of a character. That's one of her favorite things. I don't want to get into it, but it's basically one of those Japanese characters. And they had made it available as an open licensed object that we purchased for $10. And so it came with the object with supports already designed on it for SLA. It was obviously going to be SLA because of all the details. It's like one of those hand-drawn sculptures that you can buy, especially on myminifactory.com. It's that kind of a thing. And so it was time to pull out the old Anycubic Photon, plug it in, fill up the vat, and start curing resin. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed a bottle of resin that had been used already, so I knew I could use it. And it was white, and I can't recall what it was, but needless to say, it was no good anymore. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I don't think it ever was any good. And I looked carefully at the bottle, everywhere on the bottle, and nowhere on the bottle did it explain the frequency at which it cures.
Although the right wavelength for
right,
because that totally depends on. There's visible light 3D printers. There's
laser
ones,
DLP.
There's laser ones.
There's really three. Mm-hmm. There that generates the UV light.
Yeah.
The original, which was laser light, and the lasers were guided with mirrors. Mm-hmm. And then there's DLP, where it's basically a big silicon chip where little tiny mirrors move and generate UV light.
Well, they're usually generating visible light with some UV thrown in, but
the DLP was able to get the optimal resolutions. Mm-hmm. And then we have kind of a mid-range, super low budget, low cost approach, which most of us use these days, which is actually referred to as LCD LED or LED LCD. Mm-hmm. There are other names for it, like direct 3D printing, where you create with an LCD panel a filter that
a mask,
yeah. and you generate the UV light using an LED array underneath, and a vat of liquid resin above. Right. And
that's nice because you can, just by swapping out the LEDs, you can change what wavelength you're generating, so you can pick the optimal wavelength for your resin.
Well, actually, you've got that backwards for most of us.
Or pick the optimal. Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking in terms of designing the machine.
Designing the machine, yes.
You don't generally swap out the LEDs as a user of the machine.
But I think today we can be confident in saying that there's a standard at, was it 405 nanometers?
Mm-hmm. 405 is what Formlab's laser puts out, and that's, I think, fairly standard for...
Right. Now, if you go to, Anycubic, if you were to buy Anycubic's resin, and Anycubic only sells LED, LCD, SLA printers. They sell lots of other 3D printers, but their SLA printers are LCD, LED, and they state that their resin is 405 nanometers. Mm-hmm. Now, to do this print for my daughter, I had an unopened bottle of Monocure Clear, and it stated on it a range of 390 something to 40 something. So it was a range of exposure that would cure it. It worked optimally. I was able to, with one try, get the print I wanted from the printer. And that's one thing about these LED LCD printers that I have found, even with the super inexpensive ones that you and I have played with, like the Wanhao. Mm-hmm. There's a company you don't hear about very often these days.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't that difficult to get good prints from these machines. The problems with these machines are actually their durability. And my Wanhao died.
Yeah.
And but the Anycubic Photon, which is kind of a closed machine, there's very little hacking going on the Photon. It's been fairly durable. I do find I have to change the FEP film on the vat.
Yeah, that's a consumable.
Yeah, more often than I kind of expected to. And in this particular case, I had to. At that white, very thin resin that I had, there was a hole punched in it. And luckily, it cured on the glass and stopped it.
Right.
Otherwise, it would have ruined everything.
Yeah.
So it was easy to clean up, and it was not a problem. But the Monocure Clear worked brilliantly. Clear filament has an advantage. Clear resin has an advantage over pigmented resin that you should always consider. If you're going to be 3D printing objects that will be painted, which most of these probably will be.
The little miniatures and
little
stuff.
miniatures and gaming pieces. If you're, or even, jewelry is mostly used for burnouts.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're, and there really aren't many use cases for this type of 3D printing. They're kind of small because these are tiny things with very, very high detail.
Yeah.
But chances are you're going to be painting these figures. So the clear, there's no disadvantage to what you pick, opaque or clear. But the advantage to the clear is that as it's printing, while it's in printing, it's very transparent. Mm-hmm. After it's fully cured, it becomes opaque. And extremely opaque. So while it's transparent and the light is curing, it continues to cure the layers that were done previously. Mm-hmm. And that's good.
Yeah.
Because with this style of 3D printing, after you've completed the print, you have to wash the resin off your print, or you dull your details. Mm-hmm. And then after you've washed it off, and in my case, I wash it off in a jar of alcohol, IPA alcohol, and I just let it sit there and soak overnight.
That's isopropyl alcohol, not India Pale Ale. Right?
Yes. Well, not everybody has breweries in their neighborhoods. Any case, after it's been cleaned, I then put it in a UV light bath. Basically, it's a
curing chamber.
Yeah, and what I've been using these days is for fingernails.
Oh, the nail salon one.
Yeah, and I just stick it in there. But I've also made our own with a paint can and a
LED.
I learned that paint can, those LED strips do go bad very quickly. So unfortunately, it didn't work that well. But the fluorescent UV bulbs in the fingernail curing thing work all night, and they don't kill themselves, and it works brilliantly, and you get it so that it's no longer tacky. What I found also is that it's very difficult to measure how much is the right amount of resin. You basically have to fill your vat, and either you empty your vat and put that stuff in a container and hold it for next time, or you got to use it all up. Mm-hmm. So in this case, I used it all up. Mm-hmm. But the Monicure Clear is great stuff. I'd highly recommend it. But you know what? I do have a suggestion or a recommendation for those of you out there that use these type of machines. And it seems to me, and if I'm wrong, email us. But from my experience, the optimal is always to buy your resin from the company that made your printer.
Well, you're kind of getting a guarantee of compatibility, right. You would think.
Yeah. Also, especially with Anycubic, it's the least expensive.
Well, that helps.
Yeah.
But it might not have the best engineering properties. I mean, there's a huge number of different sort of. You can get flexible, you can get tough, you can get
burnout,
transparent, you can get
stuff
burnout,
that burns out.
You can get all kinds of different resins now. So.
Right. But what I've found is with LED, LCD 3D printers, it's trickier to dial those different types in. Versus my experience with the Form Labs, where you push a button, change a cartridge, push a button, bang, it works.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation where you're making money, as in dental or jewelry, it makes sense to just shove a cartridge in and push a button.
Yeah.
Rather than burning your time trying to figure it out.
Right. Well, and if you're dealing with either dentistry or jewelry, you're dealing with quality critical, high value prints.
Right.
So the cost of the resin is negligible.
Yeah, comparatively.
Right.
And the Monicure stuff is not cheap. I think it was like $40 for the bottle.
Oh, that's nothing for SLA resin.
You're probably right.
$400 would be an expensive one.
for the Form Labs, those cartridges are right around that price.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the Anycubic resin was $24.99 a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cheap.
Yeah, well, makes a difference to hobbyists, but not if you're actually using them.
Oh, but yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. So I'm going to jam it in at the end. This stuff stank up the garage so bad that I couldn't go out into the garage without opening the garage door and waiting a few moments.
Wow.
Yeah, it outgassed the Monicure stuff. Worked great, but if you've got a 3D printer in your office or in your living space and you use this stuff, look out, because the density of the outgassing is so extreme that if you breathe that in for a minute or two, you'll start to feel sick.
Yeah.
So, luckily I had it in my garage. I opened up the garage door, aired it out, and then went outside, even though it was freezing cold outside. So that's the extreme negative of the Monicure and probably SLA in general. So if you're thinking, I'm going to get into SLA, that's great. As long as you have someplace that is not a living space, because the outgassing and the potential for drips and spills is extreme.
It's worse than ABS.
By a lot. By a lot.
Yeah.
It's almost on a par with, what's that stuff that you do the polishing with, the vapor polishing?
Oh, the acetone?
Acetone. It's almost as caustic to the air.
Acetone's not that bad.
Oh, this stuff's... Go out there and you smell it. It just hits you like
Have you ever been on public transit, like a bus or a commuter train with a woman who is painting her fingernails?
Yeah,
that's acetone. It's not that bad. I'd rather not breathe it, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, well, better that than the smell of uric acid.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, you're riding on a bus, Public transit. So, Whitney, I want your take on this. I want your opinions. I'm kind of in a bit puzzled here. I'm not sure what to do.
Are you in a quandary?
I'm in a quandary. It's not an issue.
Are you in a pickle?
I'm not a pickle.
No, okay.
Not a pickle.
All right.
A pickle's more serious.
Okay.
This is kind of like, what should I do here? Now, we have the luxury. Both of us have the luck. Maybe not you as much. You're still a dad. You're still running around with kids.
Yeah, occasionally.
Mine are adults, and I'm retired. And I have the time, the resources to pick what I want to do with my life, to do things.
Sure.
It's that time of my life that I've worked for decades.
Yep.
And I spend my time with my 3D printers and making things and doing fun things, and I still print for people in the community.
And it beats playing golf, right?
Oh, I don't like. I like golf, but I don't want to play golf. In any case, we got into some debate on our forum about Clipper in particular, and one of our listeners and posters whose handle is Crashmax made some interesting points that I respect about how you can't talk to a wider audience from ignorance, and he's right. I agree with that, and we did make that clear right up front when we talked about Clipper that we admit we're not hands-on with Clipper yet.
Yeah.
And that we're looking at this from a systems standpoint. What's the optimal way to go here? How do we get to Clipper? And I keep running into roadblocks and dead ends. Okay, let's talk about one dead end. Putting it on our Ender 3. No, that's a dead end. That doesn't make any sense.
Why is that?
First of all, the Ender 3 is a Mendel. And I think putting Clipper on a Mendel, not really a waste of time, but that's not where I want to put my time.
Well, the point of Clipper is that your printer is supposed to run faster.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't think that's going to be achievable on a Mendel because of it being a Mendel?
Well, Crashmax argues that with input shaping, he argues that it's primarily an issue of ringing.
Okay.
I say, well, yeah, ringing's an issue, but you forget overshoots, and you get overshoots for moving mass,
which you've got in
not ringing,
plenty of on a Mendel.
So. Right, it's not the vibration of the length of like the pendulum vibration of your extruder system. It's the mass of the bed moving back and forth in a Mendel. That's the real issue, and input shaping can only do so much to control that. There's only so much you can do.
Right.
Maybe you can get a little bit more speed, maybe go from 45 to 65, but I don't think it's of any real high value. For that matter, it was no real high value putting the Chimera on the Ender 3.
Sure.
That was a waste of money and a waste of time. Yeah. There's very little performance upgrade that we had.
But maybe by saying you could put it on an Ender 3, just saying that would be an easy and inexpensive route to, even if it's not, as you point out, particularly advantageous.
Yeah. But I want to see the Clipper do what folks rave about, and that's its enhancement for speed, which means Core XY. Or
Delta.
Or Delta. But we've already gone the Delta route. And I'm seeing limitations, at least with our Delta, that I'm not going to get the kind of speeds that we would get with a Core XY machine. So, Voron.
Yeah.
Well, Voron's big. Voron 2.4, that's a big machine.
Can't you scale it down to whatever size you want, though?
You can go Voron 0, which is where we're going. Now, go on your laptop. Go look at the Voron 0. Have you ever looked at one?
Yeah, this is the one that has it has sort of a kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but sort of like a wizard that will create a kit for whatever size you want.
No, that's the Hevort.
That's the Hevort does that. Okay.
The Voron, it's either 2.4 or 0.1.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And the thing about the Voron that's better than Hevort is that there's lots of vendors out there, particularly in China. There are also some in Europe and in the U.S. that are making, sourced kits. So all your parts come from one location, which makes it kind of easy and relatively simple. And here's the thing about the 0.1. Two things. Problem number one, in my opinion, is you're not getting that really slick system of the entire gantry, XYZ, all in one. With the Voron 2.4, the object that you're printing, like with a Delta, it sits there and it doesn't move. And everything goes around it, like a Delta. With the Voron 2.4, its X, Y, and Z are all contained in this gantry, and the gantry is controlled with belts, goes up in the Z-axis with belts. Initially, I was really kind of, I don't know about belts. That's going to give you lots of play in the belts, but from what I'm seeing, that's all controlled really nicely. So the real is the 2.4. I look at the Voron 0, and what I see is a cantilevered shelf and a very small build area. So I'm like, well,
yeah, kind of what's the point?
And it's like $690 something bucks for it, for a little tiny build area kit. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, a smaller build area. I mean, if it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking to sort of optimize for sort of the most useful general purpose printer, then probably the larger one is the thing.
Right.
If you really want a printer that's just going to tear up the speed, smaller printers probably better because you've got less moving mass, right? I mean, you've got shorter extrusions. Your gantry is smaller, lighter. Your build plate is lighter. Everything. I mean, there's some things that don't change. Your hot end isn't going to become smaller because your build area is smaller. But everything in the kinematics of your printer is going to become lighter when it gets smaller.
That's true. However, I look at that build area and I think, for the price, see, I don't have room.
Yeah.
You don't have room. We don't have room for this many printers.
Yeah.
I'd love to get rid of some printers. And like previous printers that we've had that we bought and just sold, I could do that. And that's the thing I would consider. I'd build it, make it work really nicely, and then sell it with a premium on it for my putting it all together. I'm less likely able to sell the 0.1 than I could the 2.4.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I think it's a less desirable printer for sure.
So maybe we just go with the 2.4, but I'd have to cough up the funds to cover it. And that would be around anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400
for a kit.
For the kit.
Wow.
For a kit. Think about that's the cost of the Prusa XL with one tool.
Yeah.
Put that in perspective.
So what is it about it that I guess I'm looking at it right now and I can't really see what about it would justify that expensive a kit other than they're not making many of them.
Speed, size, you get to build it. I don't know. But you're kind of in the same boat now that I'm in. I want to use Clipper. I want to apply Clipper and an experienced Clipper, but I'm not seeing an optimal situation for us to do it.
Right.
Now, if I had a 3D printer in my garage that had an 8-bit board in it that had a good toolpath method, like a Core XY. Say if I built myself an inexpensive Core XY box, Clipper would be a definite, this perfect. But I don't have that. The boxes that I have in my garage that are Core XY already have Duet boards in them.
Right.
I'm not going to yank a Duet board or wipe a Duet board and put Clipper in it when it's working optimally.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm kind of in a dead end. I'm not sure what to do. We'll have to think about it.
There's worse problems to have.
Yes,
my friend.
There are worse problems. We haven't done this kind of a segment in a while, so I thought it's time to do it again. Basically, we're going to have some fun picking out our favorite potential projects off of Thingiverse with a common theme. And the theme that we picked are the key holders, basically a rack where you hang your keys coming in and out of your house. I've got one over by my wine rack that's made of brass that we bought from the fairgrounds, and it's got little hooks, and each of us in the household put our keys on those hooks so we know where they are and we can find them.
I've got a piece of scrap wood with some finish nails pounded into it.
It's nice that you have such a stylish, elegant way of doing things.
It's in a closet, so nobody ever sees it, so it doesn't really matter. But anyways, we thought there's a whole bunch of them on the Thingiverse, so we thought we're going to pick some. So I'd like you to go first. We're going to each pick two, okay? Sure.
So it doesn't go too long. We're two of our favorite key holder racks.
Okay. My favorite one for if you've only got one set of keys, this is thing number 2704025. It's called this Simple Birdhouse Key Holder. Now, there's a little bird that you print that goes on your keychain, and the key holder is a little birdhouse. So when you hang up your keys, you put the bird in the house, and it just hangs there with your keys hanging off the bottom. And that comes to us from Anders 644PI, otherwise known as Anders Severinsen from Denmark.
Looks like something from Denmark.
It does. It has that kind of like IKEA sort of Scandinavian folk art kind of thing going. It's real cute.
Yeah, really cute. Okay, my turn. Okay, this one, I think I may have seen versions of this that you can buy, but this is one you can make. It's the guitar amp key hanger. It's basically, it looks like a Marshall guitar amp, a Marshall head. Cool. All of this is printable, but you have to paint it and supply the furnishings to make it look just like a Marshall amp. And then you put a phono plug on your key ring, and when you come in and you want to mount your keys, you just insert the phono plug as if you were plugging in your guitar into the Marshall amp.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
The only question is, does it go to 11?
You could make it go to 11. You could do that.
There's another thing you can print where you can make it go to 11.
Yes, yes. And this comes to us from a user whose handle on Thingiverse is Hazmat. Hazmat.
That's cute.
Let's see, who is Hazmat? Hazmat. Oh, Thingiverse is slow today. Oh, too bad. Hazmat is Matthew Sharp, who doesn't say where he's from, but he has quite a few interesting things out there anyway. Okay, your turn.
That's good. Okay, and my second one is called Climbing Nut Style Key Holder and Ugly Nut. Now, they admit that the nut they created is ugly and is not worthy of this, but what it is basically this little board that you print out that has a bunch of little cracks in it, like
a wall.
The perfect ideal cracks for placing climbing nuts in.
Yeah.
So if you were on a climb, you would love to find a spot like that would take a nut just perfectly like that.
Yeah, these are like wedges that go on your keys, but when you're mountain climbing, you're putting your life on the line with this thing by sticking it into a crack in the rocks.
Yes.
And these hang from that.
These are bomber placements, dude. So this comes to us from it's thing number 5184619. It comes to us from Falcon LMF. Who's identifies himself as Falcon LMFF. So I'm not sure what that story is.
Did you give the thing number?
Yes.
Okay, then the last one is my turn. It's the guitar headstocks. I'm staying with the electric guitar theme here.
Always good.
The guitar headstocks key hangers. These look like Stratocaster headstocks that say Fender on them. And basically you hang your key ring on the tuners. And these look really cool. This is thing number 5186116 that comes to us from a Thingiverse user whose handle is AA3D Printing. AA3D Printing is out of South Africa. It seems like it's a company that has produced quite a few things. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's not one individual that I can see. Well, no, it is an individual, but they don't give their name. They just call themselves.
I think this is just their business.
They are AA3D Printing out of South Africa.
Well, that's cool. I think this may be our first thing from South Africa.
Possibly.
I don't ever remember one before.
Not sure.
So.
But a lot of really interesting stuff on there.
Some nice designs.
Oh boy, Whitney, another show written to the hard drive, waiting for encoding, uploading, and commitment on our feed to all of our very supportive listeners. Thank you all out there for your support on Patreon. Thank you for your positive reviews, wherever those can be made. We really do appreciate those, by the way. And hey, thanks for listening. We do it for you. We do it for fun. We're not in this game for money or fame. We just like to sit around and gab about things like 3D printing. We talk about other things, but not on the mics. Anyway, I do have a thing of the week this week. And I've been looking at these things for a while because my helping hands that I used to have that I got from Radio Shack broke. And it never really worked right. So I've been looking around at solder station helping hand projects. And this one I found called the Solder Station Third Hand Helping Hand V3 by a Thingiverse user named Dan Tech.
Dan Tech identifies himself as Dan Tech from Italy.
Now Dan Tech has published a number of these. He's remixed them a couple times.
Yeah, this is his third in the series.
But this one has the most number of hands to help you, and it also they all attach to a bracket which contains a square a fan. Probably a 12 or 24 volt fan. And I like that a lot because when I was a kid and I used to solder when I was a little kid. I soldered like crazy. I was circuit boards. I built radios. I fixed things. And I used to sniff the fumes.
The flux.
And it used to kick off my asthma really bad.
Well, the interesting thing is that the flux was actually, at least I've heard, I haven't researched this myself, but I've been told at least that the flux in the old days was actually better than the new flux.
Wow.
We had lead in the solder.
Yeah.
But that didn't really get into the air very much. But the flux that you're using for lead is very simple compared to the lead-free fluxes. And the lead-free fluxes are actually a lot worse for you than the flux you used with lead. Now, of course, it's better to not have the lead in the solder.
Yeah.
Anyways, interesting questions.
But that's the fan. I think the value in the fan is way higher than a value for a small magnifying glass by a lot. So I like the idea of the use of the fan bracket as the central holding point for all the arms so that no matter what, you're sucking air through the primary area, which is going to...
getting it away from your face.
Getting it away from where your nose and mouth are.
Right, because I don't know about you, but these days I'm wearing a magnifying visor and my face is about 2 inches away from what I'm soldering just to be able to see what I'm doing.
Right, yeah, because our eyesight's not the same as it used to be.
Not like it was when I started soldering at age 12.
So let's see. This is thing number 5253842. Again, the user's name is DanTech. A really awesome item. Thank you for posting, Dan. If you've got a tip, a question, or a candidate thing of the week, what are you waiting for? Send us an email.
Send it to info@3dprintingtoday.com. That's THREE, the letter D, printingtoday.com.
And again, I invite you to join our forum on Google Groups. Just go to Google and type in 3D printing tips and tricks. When you get there, if you want to post, you have to hit that join button and just give them an email, any email, as long as you can get to it and verify who you are. Let's see. We do have a show next week, Whitney. Show number 425.
We start out talking about polypropylene.
We do some of our opinions, and they're strong opinions, on the Raspberry Pi and its usage as a server for 3D printing.
Ooh, us? Strong opinions? And then we talk about the gaming market.
I guess that's it.
Great. Thanks for listening.